Well, thousands of people will gather in New York City today and also in Shanksville and Pennsylvania to remember the nearly 3,000 people who were killed when the hijacked jetliners crashed into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon and a field in Pennsylvania on the 11th of September way back in 2001. In New York City, a ceremony will take place at the 9/11 Memorial where the mourners will gather as they do every year since the attack for the annual reading of the victims' names from both the 1993 and also the 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center. Now, ahead of the annual memorials across the United States to commemorate the attack of 9/11, a tower of voices was in fact dedicated in rural Pennsylvania to honor 40 victims who died when the United 93 crashed into a field in Shanksville. The tower is composed of 40 chimes, one for each of the victims of the flight. The dedication ceremony took place amidst heavy rains and also featured a statement from Tom Ridge, who was governor of Pennsylvania then and later went on to serve as the first U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security. The White House has said that U.S. President Donald Trump has received a letter from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un about scheduling a possible second meeting between the two leaders and that the White House wants it to take place. The White House spokesperson Sarah Huckabee Sanders has said that the White House is already in process of coordinating another Trump-Kim summit. The White House National Security Advisor John Bolton has branded the International Criminal Court dangerous and unaccountable, saying that it constitutes an assault on U.S. sovereignty. Bolton has said that the United States rejects any move by the court to prosecute American service members and intelligence officials over the alleged detainee abuse in Afghanistan, allegations the court is presently reviewing. U.S. President Donald Trump's National Security Advisor John Bolton has said that the United States, Britain and France have agreed that another use of chemical weapons by the Syrian government would result in a much stronger response compared to the previous airstrikes which took place on Syria. The U.S. officials have said in recent days that they have evidence that the Syrian government forces are preparing chemical weapons ahead of a planned assault on a rebel-held enclave in Idlib in the northwestern part of the country. Turkey's Humanitarian Relief Foundation started an aid campaign for Syrians expected to be displaced by an anticipated military offensive against the rebel-held enclave of Idlib. The Turkish charity has dispatched a convoy of almost about 20 trucks from Istanbul heading to Turkey's southern border with Syria carrying humanitarian aid supplies. As part of the campaign, the organization anticipates dispatching at least about 1,000 trucks to Syria to help people displaced by an expected Idlib assault as a part of the campaign. The hundreds of Catalan separatists marched in Barcelona to demand the release of imprisoned secessionist political and grassroots leaders as part of the official celebrations of September 11, Dia de Catalonia's National Day. The day marks the anniversary of the fall of Barcelona to the Spanish forces way back in 1714. Catalan President Quim Torra and the Parliament Speaker Roger Torrent made their way from Parliament to the Generalitat government building in Sant Jaume Square, where thousands of independent supporters were gathered to show their support for the imprisoned leaders and also those who are in exile. Germany's far-right Alternate for Germany party has invited citizens to in fact take part in a mourners' march after a 22-year-old German man died overnight in the eastern town of Koeten and two Afghans were detained on suspicion of killing him. The written invitation that's been sent out by the Saxony-Anhalt arm of the AfD party has called for a peaceful remembrance march without extremists, saying that there will be no speeches so that local people could actually mourn in peace. The European Union's Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier, has said that a divorce deal with Britain could be agreed in 6 to 8 weeks if negotiators are realistic in their demands. The Barnier has told the Bled Strategic Forum that he believes that it is perfectly possible for an agreement to be reached before the beginning of November. The Barnier has regularly said that he wants a deal by November to ensure parliamentary ratification by the month of March, when Britain must leave with or without a deal. He has routinely said that this timetable is a realistic one if negotiators find compromises. Florence has strengthened further into a Category 4 hurricane in the Atlantic as North Carolina has ordered for evacuations of the Outer Banks. Now, Hurricane Florence is the first major hurricane to threaten the eastern United States this year and packs maximum sustained winds of over 130 miles per hour. The hurricane force winds could actually buffet the Carolinas by Wednesday night, with landfall likely in South Carolina and also North Carolina on Thursday. It is expected to be followed by heavy rains, which could cause flooding in much of the U.S. southeast. The governors of Virginia, North Carolina and South Carolina have all declared a state of emergency. At least 35 people were killed and hundreds of others injured when a gas tanker exploded in northern Nigerian state of Nasarawa and started a blaze. Now, the State Emergency Management Agency official has said that the accident happened at a petrol station along the Lafia-Makurdi road linking the capital city of Abuja with the northern and southern part of Nigeria. Iraq's Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi has visited the city of Basra after days of deadly protests that saw the government offices being ransacked and set on fire by protesters who were extremely angry over political corruption. At least about 13 protesters died, some in clashes with security forces, and dozens more have been wounded. Now, Abadi has said that the situation in Basra was purely a political dispute and has accused the political blocs of trying to burn Basra. Hundreds of people marched in the city centre carrying flowers and Iraqi flags during Abadi's visit, holding aloft pictures of protesters, they said, who had been killed in the recent clashes. A Saudi princess has reported the theft of jewels worth almost 800,000 euros from her suite at the Ritz Hotel in Paris. Now, the princess says that the jewels were taken on Friday afternoon. There are no signs that the room had in fact been broken into. The woman has told the prosecutors that the belongings were not left in the room safe. If confirmed, this would be the second heist from the chic hotel on Paris's Place Vendôme this year. Back in the month of January, axe-bearing thieves had burst into the lobby and had stolen millions of dollars worth of necklaces and other jewelry from display cases. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has said that talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin are moving towards a peace treaty. Russia and Japan have not signed a peace treaty since the Second World War because of a dispute about the Pacific Islands, which are known in Russia as Kurils and in Japan as the Northern Territories. Now, Abe has also said that the head of Japan's self-defense forces will visit Russia in October. Sweden's two main political blocs, the Social Democrats and the Moderates, are now neck and neck after Sunday's parliamentary election. Coming in the third place, the anti-immigration Sweden Democrats Party has made huge gains, more than before. It's won about 18% of the vote, up from 12.9% in the last elections. A heated battle to form a working coalition now looks like an absolute certainty. At least about 6 people were killed in an Al-Shabaab attack on a local government building in Somalia's capital. The death toll is expected to rise further. Last week, a suicide car bomb had destroyed another district office of Mogadishu. There were no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab frequently carries out bombings and gun attacks in the capital Mogadishu and other parts of Somalia. The late former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annans made his final journey home to Ghana when his body landed at Accra's Kotaka International Airport. The Ghanaian President Nana Akufo greeted Annans' wife, Nane Maria Annan, and Annans' children and grandchildren before the remains that were draped with the blue UN flag. After a brief ceremony, soldiers changed the UN flag for the national colours over the casket before carrying the coffin into a hearse, and Annan will be receiving a full state funeral on Thursday after lying in state for 2 days at the Accra International Conference Centre. A British baby born with her heart outside of her body has been allowed to make visits to her parents' home after months in hospital. Vanellope Wilkins was born last November, with the medics giving her less than 10% chance of survival. After 9 months and 3 operations for the rare condition, she's now begun spending time at home with her parents.
Bit too much.
Now, US and British Navy vessels participated in a mine countermeasures exercise in the Gulf Sea off the coast of Bahrain. Helicopters flew above the water while towing an underwater sonar device, which is used to detect unusual shapes underwater that require further inspection and investigation. Now, the Gulf Sea is the scene of much regional tension as it separates Saudi Arabia from its regional rival Iran and is home to most of the marine trade coming out of the Gulf into the Indian Ocean. The nationwide protests against record-high petrol and diesel prices shut down businesses, government offices and schools in many parts of India, with protesters blocking trains and roads. Several people were arrested in Assam and West Bengal, and taxes on petrol and diesel, which account for more than half of the retail value of the fuel price, are some of the biggest sources of income for the government and also an extremely emotive issue for the voters.